Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Watch News Weekly, and today I have a very special guest with me. I have Ariel from A Blog to Watch. Maybe you heard of them. One of the OGs when it comes to blog space and when it comes to watches. Going back in time to around where I started in the business. So definitely very excited to have you here, and I'm glad you decided to join me on this newscast because oddly enough, one of the topics we actually grabbed from your website, believe it or not.
Thank you, Ron.
I'm going to jump right into the topics, and the first thing on the topic is something that just makes me laugh all the time. Rolex prices drop as cheaper watches outperform. Subdial Index. An index of Rolex timepieces declined 2.2% in September according to market prices tracked by the Bloomberg Subdial Watch Index. Cartier watches dropped 0.4%. Omega up 1.2, dropped 1.2, and Tudor dropped 1.8. Every time I read these, every time I watch these shows, sometimes on Bloomberg TV, it just makes me laugh because all this data that's being put out there, all these indexes that were created, all of a sudden when watches were deemed to be an investment, all of a sudden people are tracking it. But it's how are you really tracking it? Because what you're looking at is you're looking at data from the primary market. Your big retailers, your manufacturers reporting the boutiques and so on and so forth. And oddly enough, I don't know of manufacturers or boutiques that are reporting this on a monthly basis to some centralized database to be able to pinpoint it down to 0.4%. This is ridiculous.
So this is really timely for me because I just wrote a newsletter article that went out to just industry members. And the topic this month of the article was about data, exactly this type of thing. I said, ignore all these numbers because it doesn't matter what formula they use, the data itself is incomplete.
Of course.
So whatever this index is getting data for, I guess Rolex prices are dropping because that's the market we're in right now. We're in a depressed economy. We have a low disposable income. But I would take all this with a grain of salt because this is one narrow slice of data that you would need the entire set of data to know the market. This is just one narrow thing. And these indexes don't tell you where the data comes from. They make you think that this is the entire market. It's not. So I just ritualistically ignore this stuff.
Every time I look at all this stuff, the first thing I say is that there's zero data in there from the secondary market, i.e. my world.
They don't have your data.
Exactly. Number two, the data is so segmented and it's so inconsistent, meaning that you can take a single Rolex watch and you start adding varieties into the fact that it's new, used, pre-owned with boxing papers, without boxing papers, missing links, bad dial. There's so many variations to a single Rolex. It's impossible to put this data together. We were talking earlier on your podcast and we actually discussed this in detail. But guys, this is entertainment at its best. This gets people's eyes on there. There's nobody out there investing into any kind of watch indexes. And I'm sorry, actually, I can name 5 watches that actually went up in value across Rolex because of the shortage on the market. That it jumps like this on a daily basis. So to come back and say Cartier watches dropped 0.4% based on what? Either give me the sources of your data, either segment this into actual markets, primary, secondary, retail, etc. I call bullshit. Let's just go to the next topic. Akrivia Vuitton, i.e. the big buzz around this, right? So Louis Vuitton is presenting the world with their collaboration watch with Akrivia, retail price $500,000. It actually says dollars, actually €500,000 euros, I found out. So a client of mine has been shown this watch already, and moving to supply by Recep Recepi, many ways to say his name, made by LV exclusively, okay? And the question is Louis Vuitton becoming Patek Philippe's competitor in the world of horology? I think it's also a funny statement.
It is a weird statement. Okay, I mean, there's a lot to say about this. I know a lot. Okay, so first of all, Jean Arnault, who runs Louis Vuitton watches right now, is a watch enthusiast. He is taking the brand in a watch enthusiast direction, and for him that means collaborations, bringing in interesting personalities. He wants to teach the greater world about some of the world of independence through Louis Vuitton, which is a noble thing. I feel a little bit of sort of like, you remember Max Busser at Harry Winston with the Opus? Not exactly the same, but vibes. Definitely vibes from that. So Louis Vuitton today wants to bring the world of rarefied horology a little bit more to the mainstream that would look at the Louis Vuitton name. So that's what this is about. This isn't about like they're buying Akrivia or anything like that. This is about, and there's also the Louis Vuitton Watch Prize, which I'm actually part of, which is the same thing where it's trying to find unknown cool personalities in horology and bring them front and center. So this is Louis Vuitton acting as a curator of the world of horology and bringing in interesting personality. I believe this is a one-of-a-kind watch.
No, they're making 10.
Okay, they're making 10. So it's a very small production thing. It's going to be a combo effort. I haven't seen the watch yet. I was invited to see it, but I'm here on the East Coast, so I will see it eventually. Another Blog to Watch team member will. But I think that you're going to expect to see more of this. The Louis Vuitton watch brand is interesting because it doesn't really make a huge economic impact on Louis Vuitton overall, right? Louis Vuitton makes tons and tons of money, so it's a playground. And now Jean Arnault is deciding to turn the playground into this. It's more high-end. It's a lot more focused on horology. They have their whole manufacturer, La Fabrique du Temps, right outside of Geneva. Retshep is in Geneva nearby. It just makes so much sense to see the synergy. So again, Louis Vuitton will be doing more of this. It's going to be very exclusive, and it's about bringing some of those less-known personalities out there, curated through the Louis Vuitton lens as a way of creating desire and showing that Louis Vuitton is competent in this area.
So I will say this, and this isn't something. Louis Vuitton has been making watches for years, and they were all looked at as accessories, maybe like Chanel watches, if you will, right? But they are a horological powerhouse.
Sure.
Some of the people that they employ, some of the watchmakers that they have, they can certainly make insane watches. The biggest issue here is how do you separate fashion from watches, right? Many brands have out there tried it. I think Chanel was very successful in the beginning. And I think they still are. Those watches still sell. But they've come back to sort of that accessory status. They tried high horology, obviously. The tourbillon watches they made didn't really do very well. Louis Vuitton, same thing. They've had tourbillons in the past before they really heavy went into this, right? And here's what happens. I had a client, real example, called me yesterday. It's like, listen, I'm being offered the tourbillon by Louis Vuitton. The Tambourine tourbillon, whatever it's called.
They make a lot of them.
Yeah. And then, what do you think? I said, absolutely not. I said, if you have disposable income that you want to go in and you really like the watch, right? It's like you're going to buy it, let's say for $100,000, whatever the price is, and be prepared for it to be worth $20,000 when you walk out the door, much like with a Chanel tourbillon, right? Or a Christian Dior watch, where the retail is outrageous and then they trade at cents on the dollar, right?
If you care about resale.
If you care about resale. And the only people that do buy those things are those that don't care about resale. But the problem is, based on all those indexes that we just discussed, most people tend to think about, oh, what is this going to be worth when I take it off my wrist? Is this money in a bank, right? Now let's talk specifically about Recep Recepi. Now there's a cult surrounding this man right now, right? He has this group of people that are personal friends. They get allocated these pieces that he makes, if they're lucky, and on paper those watches are worth 20x their retail value. Why? Because you can't get them. His next available watch, I believe, is 5 years out, or something like that. He's done with the what do you call it? He's done with Akrivia, so he's done with the HK6. What's the brand, the model? Is it H something 6? It's number 6, whatever it is.
Right.
I forget what it is. They made it in titanium. They made it in stainless steel. For the record, I sold one of those for $650,000. It's a watch that retails for $60,000. Why did I get such a high ticket price on it? It's because the person that bought it knows he has no chance in the world to get it for 2 reasons. Number one, 5 years out, and odds are he won't be approved by Recep. And number two, those that own those watches do not sell them. You do not see them on the market, right? You saw the one of the older models that he made that fed the Recepi that fetched $800,000. I saw an opportunity to buy one. I had the balls to go out there and pay stupid money for that watch, resell it and make a good profit. People were like, you paid how much? I'm like, yes. And I paid $500,000 for it, right, plus. So, and I was able to sell it. So I think a very strategic move by taking somebody. I guarantee you there are more than 10 Recep fanboys out there that are going to go buy that watch, not because it's Louis Vuitton, but because it's Akrivia.
Well, because that's part of the strategy, is to bring in that legitimacy, right? It's two ways. It's not only Louis Vuitton teaching the world about these interesting people, but it's also bringing Louis Vuitton closer to the world of the enthusiast, and Recep validates it.
Absolutely.
And so you were talking about Chanel never did that.
They did.
Chanel made great products without ever talking about them.
Somebody good made their tourbillons. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Well, Romain Gaultier.
That's right.
It wasn't the tourbillon. It was the Monsieur, which is a jumping hour thing. The tourbillon was APRP.
Yeah, Gaultier was involved with that.
Yeah.
So look, the statement, will LV's hard horology become a serious Patek Philippe competitor? I think that's something we could smile at.
I don't even know what that means. I mean, does it need to be? It's not going to look the same. I mean, look, Louis Vuitton high horology is very good. You may not like the design because you may have something weird about the L.
I actually like the watches.
I like them as well.
Yeah.
Look, I'm an owner of a Louis Vuitton watch. I've had it for a long time. I've never felt that the fashion thing was a negative, because fashion houses do something really well, make pretty stuff.
I agree 100%.
And there's a lot of great watches out there that are ugly as sin, right?
100%. And so I don't think, I think the question is Louis Vuitton a potential Patek Philippe competitor? I think it's going to be very tough to compete with Patek Philippe, but I don't think that's what they're trying to do. They want to take their
Why do you need to? There only needs to be one Patek. There only needs to be one Richard Mille.
Let's go to the next
Be your own
topic.
thing.
And that is the one-of-a-kind diamond Patek Philippe. So Patek Philippe created for a private client about 30 years ago a watch that features a 13.5 or approximately cut portrait cut diamond as a dial cover in place of the traditional sapphire crystal. It's coming to auctions. They're saying it could fetch $2 million and is the third largest portrait cut diamond known to exist. And let's look at the picture on the screen. And when I first saw this, I said, oh my God, if somebody, now that I know that that's a diamond instead of a sapphire, but if somebody brought that to my office, and let's say that wasn't a diamond, that's a sub $5,000 watch because it's not particularly attractive. But here we are where we get into a genre of watches where it's pride of ownership, I feel like, right? It can be the ugliest watch in the world, but at the same token, sometimes pride of ownership kicks in, especially for those that have a lot of disposable income. And I wouldn't be surprised if this thing fetches $2 million, because indeed it's the Rolls Royce of the watch world, i.e. Patek Philippe, and it's a super rare watch. And you think this goes over or under $2 million?
I'm amused by this thing.
This is so ugly. This is so ugly.
This is the thing. Ugly or not, this is something I can say about this. There's no person this looks good on.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. 100%.
So if you buy this watch, it's sitting in some case somewhere. I hope you hire a great visual merchandiser, because you have to somehow make this watch look pretty in some environment. Okay, like you said, that fact that this has the third largest portrait cut, no one cares. I don't care.
I don't.
So if you spend $2 million on this, display it with pride, I'm amused.
Look, there are plenty of institutions out there, that have funds and they appropriate money towards these high-ticket items in the art world, in the watch world. For example, what was the Piece Unique Grand Chime that sold for $31 million, right? I actually know for a fact that went to a fund, right? And people were laughing at him saying, oh my God, well, guess what? That watch is worth more today. You can get more than $30 million for it today. I know
can
you can. Okay. I have the buyers that would buy it, right?
Right.
But something like this, I think, is in that same realm, because I respect modern art. I love modern art. I'm extremely
You like the
passionate.
folded metal bracelet there?
But that is just, I don't know.
You could buy a lot of nice watches for $2 million.
You could, and you know what? Again, this is like buying a Pollock. This is like buying a Picasso. This is just something that, like you said, you buy, you put away. This is not going to see a risk time.
Well, auction houses need to sell something, right? So they'll try to boost up whatever they got.
This is great. All right, let's go to the next topic. Legendary collection to auction, and I know you know a lot about this, so I cannot pronounce that guy's last name. Patrick Getreide, right? I believe is the proper way.
It's French.
Getreide?
Getreide.
Okay. So he's auctioning off his prized possession, which it's the famous oak collection, which stands for one of a kind, and most of his stuff is one of. And it's been valued by various people between $100 to $300 million as a collection. He did pay world records prices 25 times during the process of acquiring his pieces. In the watch category, this could be, I guess, the largest collection that Christie's has ever handled. Surprised Sotheby's didn't get this. Let's go through some of them. They have the pocket watch, the 992, right? This was a unique 18-karat gold Patek Philippe pocket watch, set with sapphires, closed in an enamel dial depicting a Lac Blanc. Okay, now approximation is 250 to 500. Another one is going to be, let's go to the next slide, is the 1436. Again, split-second chronograph, black dial, made in the 50s. Supposedly 59 of them unknown to exist. Kills me, dude, by the way. These companies have such terrible records. It's supposedly 59 exists. They don't really know if it's actually.
They have no records.
They have no records of this stuff. Again, estimate $500,000 to $1 million. Another example we'll bring up is the Audemars Piguet reference 5516. This is something that I would love to bid on, but the estimate is all the way up to $1.6 million. I'm just curious where they come up with these estimates.
It's a pretty big spread, huh?
It's a pretty big spread right there.
You're in sales. You know how these things are created.
Oh, of course I do. Of course I do, right? So this is one of 6 known. I actually almost bought one. I was this close to buying one of these, and I missed out on the deal for nowhere near that estimate. I know you know about this collection. I know you know about the man. I'll let you take on this
one. So I actually had Patrick on the Superlative show.
Okay.
So I chatted with him a lot about it. I had this interesting experience when he brought out a bunch of people, myself, all the way to his high school friends, to this exhibition in London. And this was at an art museum, and they had the one-of-a-kind exhibition. This is sort of a strange thing. No one's quite sure why they're there. And Christie's is also there, kind of helping a little bit. And everyone's like, we really appreciate this invitation. Lovely party. It was an amazing party. We're not really sure why we're here. He's like, well, I want to show you some of my collection. And it was like, everyone was like, what's going on here? And the statement, I'm not intending to sell these, was mentioned, I believe, a few times. Or at least people were asking, like, you can auction it? No, I'm not, even though Christie's was there. And when I discussed with this individual, this is a man who loves watches. He spent a lot of his life buying watches. And he has two types of watches. He has the things he likes, call them the weird personal watches. You and I both have them. And then he has like these popular, historically significant, like if you're into collecting watches, people know this.
The blue chips.
Yeah.
Call them that.
And so he has both of these things. He has interesting ways he stores his watches, but he's sort of coming to this retirement point in his life. And I think his family is like, Dad, you got way too many watches. What are you going to do with it? Now, the interesting thing that he's done, which I think more people need to do, is actually create a personality around their collection. Because most people's collections, the collection itself means nothing. It's just a bunch of individual watches that hopefully themselves have independent merit. But as more of these individuals are coming to the end of their life or retiring, similar to art collections, the collection itself needs to have merit because the things in it may not have as much individual merit. So what I really liked is they were trying to create a personality around one human's collection, which I thought was great, especially if there's going to be some type of lifespan to this collection. People were hoping that it would be a traveling exhibit, da-da-da-da-da-da. Now it turns out that there's been some change of idea, and they're selling. Now, here's the thing. I don't think this is the whole collection. This is some of his watches. This individual has a ton of watches, and the things that we're seeing here are, like you said, just the popular ones. These are the watches that don't have personal value to him. The watches he loves, he's probably keeping. This is just to thin things out, and because they're so commercially, viable, Christie's, I mean, they have to be just like watering at the mouth.
You think?
Right? So I'm sure they've been pushing him all year. Please let us sell some. Please let us sell some. So this is, as far as I can understand, some of the pieces of the collection, not the man's favorites that are personal to him, that probably wouldn't be worth as much because they're really meant to him.
I wouldn't be surprised if he has more than one also.
This is like, he has a lot of doubles. Oh, he does.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it could potentially be doubles.
This is sort of a spring cleaning, if you will. Christie's is the beneficiary.
But he messed up. Timing. Do this a year and a half ago.
But he doesn't care. This is Christie's. Yeah. So Christie's messed up on the timing. And remember, a year and a half ago, he didn't want to do it. At least that's what he said.
That's true as well.
So I don't know what's changed, but this is an opportunity for Christie to make a bunch of money. And yes, these watches are ones that you'll know. So if you have a lot of money and want those like very popular vintage watches, this is a great auction to look at.
I mean, these are all grails. Every single one of these watches is a grail. And look, I will summarize it like this. What this auction is, or the fact that he decided to put, whether they're duplicates or pieces he doesn't want, I'm sure in the back of his vault there are pieces that are even more impressive, especially some of the one-of-a-kind stuff that he has. But this is a great opportunity for somebody where money is not an object. And the best part about at least the pieces that I saw on the screen, the price is irrelevant. This is a watch where the prices are really irrelevant. It's what one is willing to pay for it. Oh, yeah. You always hear that term thrown around like a buzzword. Well, what is this worth? It's what you're willing to pay for it. But in most cases, it's not true. In this case, it's actually very true. Every single one of these watches is worth what one is willing to pay for them. It's obviously going to set a marker should, by some odd chance, some of these come back out on the market. Well, the ones that are multiples of, not the piece uniques. I think this sets a big market in a big way, and I think for somebody out there who is passionate about watches, it doesn't get any better than this. There's nothing in the modern world that can match this. And it doesn't get any better. I mean, I'm sure there are pieces out there sitting in hidden vaults that we don't even know about, but certainly I don't think it can get any better than this for somebody as an opportunity to pick something up that is just it.
I would want the catalog, frankly. I bet this would be a really good catalog.
Honestly, I agree. Yeah, I think I get their catalog, so when I get it, I will make sure I'll get you a copy.
Thank you.
Let's keep going to Momma Ain't Raised No Fool. Jay-Z's diamond-studded Jacob & Co. watch sold for $1.5 million at auction. Dubbed the Caviar Tourbillon World Timer, Jay-Z's 47.5mm watch is crafted from 18-karat white gold, a dial set with bonkers 204 baguette diamonds, an additional 294 baguettes spent at its bezel, case, and bracelet. The Brooklyn Rappers Diamond Studded Jacob with timepiece just hammered down for a cool $1.5 million at Host Celeb Studded Casino Night and Auction. I wasn't at that event. A friend of mine was. He actually called me from there. He was thinking about bidding on this watch. My response to him was absolutely not.
You remember what these used to be worth?
Oh my God. So, history of Jacob. First and foremost, as far as Jacob, the man, is concerned, having started in a booth on 47th Street, corner of 6th and 47th Street, in the back of the exchange, in a showcase the size of this table, and where he's gotten to now, that I've taken my hat off to him on numerous occasions. Also, an immigrant product like myself from the former Soviet Union. What he has built is absolutely tremendous, where he started to where he is today, and can serve as a model to a lot of people out there of someone starting with absolutely zero and building the empire that he has built. I will second the fact that the 5 time zone watch is one of the most iconic watches ever made. It was, even though it was a complete shit watch made in China with a shit China movement and a shit diamond bezel. But that 5 time Jacob zone has been
Put him on the map.
Put him on the map. It's been in songs, it's been in rap videos, it's been everywhere. In fact, going back to pre-08 crisis, we talked earlier about, Russian oligarchs and what they were buying. Their girlfriends always had a Jacob 5-tone diamond watch and a Hermes bag. That was like a uniform, and a Virtu phone. That was like a big thing. But specifically this watch, now mind you, this was all done for charity. And a lot of people, this isn't a major auction. This is something that Hove held during Casino Night in Atlantic City, right? What happened, there were 2 watches auctioned. I forget what the second one was. But the reason he did this is obviously for a good cause. And I always tell people, whenever you look at auction, take auction results that are done for a charity and scratch them off the list. It doesn't scream market price, it doesn't scream anything. Now, Jay-Z himself is an icon. He's an icon in my eyes growing up. He still is an icon in my eyes. He's a powerhouse when it comes to hip hop. What he's done for hip hop is tremendous. So if I am buying his watch, how much of the value is the fact that it was actually his watch? There is an added value to that in certain collectors' minds, number one. Look at the
That's apparently most of the value.
It is most of the value. Now, to go back to the tourbillon, to go back to they call it the caviar, I actually owned this very watch, except mine was not baguette diamonds, mine was actually regular diamonds. I've owned that watch for $65,000 at the time, where the price tag was $500,000. Because what happened is, when Jacob made that shift of going, a lot more high-end, a lot more, started opening up boutiques and things of that nature, and he had to scrap the older stuff. And some of the stuff he made, especially the 5 time zone stuff, he made in such quantities that it was absolutely, the market was flooded. In fact, there was a closeout of it to the tune of 6,000 pieces that I know who bought, and I know how much, we're not gonna mention it, but that stuff, the market was flooded with that stuff, and along with it were pieces such as this. Right, and now part of that closeout, I ended up buying that other tourbillon that I think I ended up selling for like under $100,000. One thing I'll give to Jacob in terms of design, he designs his own watches, and he does a good job. That's a good-looking watch. The problem is you will never shed off. Anytime you go operas, pre-Astronomias, pre-all that stuff, pre-Godfather watch, and you go back to the old with the familiar subdials on the dials, the value is just not going to be there. But as a watch, it's iconic. As a person, you got Jay-Z as iconic. And I know the people that were in the room, it was also a big flex thing for those that were bidding. So they were trying to show off by bidding it up to $1.5 million. But overall, it's $1.5 million for a good cause. So bravo to Jay-Z and bravo to Jacob.
I mean, I have to say this. You and I are permanently tainted by the fact that we remember what you could get watches like this for.
Yes.
We will never forget that.
Yes.
And even though a lot of the modern stuff that Jacob makes, like we're just kind of tainted for life. So we know that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for the originality and the ambition that Jacob has brought to the space. He's created much better stuff since this.
Of course.
Right?
I mean, the Bugatti watch is bonkers.
I think that what you see here, as you said, is a manifestation of the popularity of someone like Jay-Z and his cultural significance. I always try to remind people that take these auction numbers with a grain of salt, because you don't know who was there that night or what their mood was and why they were buying it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I guess the thing is that these watches are coming back and making some type of a splash regardless of the price is a function of who was buying them and believing them at the time. Because at the time, the fact that a rapper was buying a diamond watch, we're like, so the hell what? But now those people are, again, in the legacy part of their careers. Their historic taste decisions are now being taken more significantly. So you and I can kind of snicker about it, but like a 20-year-old is going to take this news very, very differently.
And you also have to understand that we're of a different generation. The newer generation collector out there may look at this watch and he won't know about, you know, the days of $1,000 Jacob, where you can unscrew the bezel and put a steel bezel on. They won't know about how cheap they were on a secondary, 10 years ago, let's say. They're looking at this as, oh, they see a Jacob in a whole lot of music videos and movies and things of that nature. They're seeing this as, oh my God, I would have loved to own Jay-Z's watch, and look how cool this big diamond watch really is. Never mind what's inside the watch, we're not gonna get into that, but but with that said, I will go out on a limb and say this. If I had that type of disposable income, to spend $1.5 million on that watch, I actually would, but not because of the Jacob & Co., but because of Jay-Z. So, and let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic is something that we actually took right off of your website, believe it or not. And that's introduction of code 1159 in 38 millimeters, right? So we're seeing scaling down in size even more. And it's like, it's becoming somewhat of a trend across many brands. And again, the code 1159, when it came out of the gate, I thought it was a wonderful thing. Most people made fun of it. I think my favorite meme online was like, oh, you spent 6 years in research and development, and this is what you came up with, or something like that. I forget what it was. What I liked about it is that it was a breath of fresh air to the fact that we were living in the world of Royal Oak, and we did away with the jewels, we did away with the Edward Piguet, we did away with the millinery, right? Because they just weren't doing it for it was Royal Oak, Royal Oak, Royal Oak. What's the new dressy thing? It's code 1159. Do I think they overproduced a few models? I think they did. They should have kept the line smaller. But here we are. Are they keeping up with trend of going a little bit smaller, or are they just trying something new in order to make the 1159 more successful? What do you think?
That's a very good question, and you and I both have seen the troubled history of the Code 1159. The launch was botched. Audemars Piguet subsequently make modifications to the dials in the case itself to make it better. And here we have a watch which they're calling unisex, but essentially is a woman's watch play. As you can see, these ones right here, especially those straps, while a man could wear them, I put them on my wrist. These are appointed more in a more feminine way. There probably will be more masculine ones coming. I think that there's going to be a lot of guys out there like it. When it comes to sizes, I don't think that sizes are necessarily going down across the board, just more smaller sizes are being added to the existing roster of large sizes. I see it like clothing sizes, like they're just making sizes of something which works for larger size, but now for a wrist that wants smaller. It's an anatomical preference. There's nothing about should you wear larger or smaller. You should wear the size that you like on your wrist. But the reality is there's a lot of people out there that did not want to wear those larger ones, and now making them smaller opens up a new market. And that's a very, very real thing. It's going to be very difficult for someone who is going to Audemars Piguet to not first go to Royal Oak. Right?
It's impossible.
So I see this as,
impossible.
Audemars Piguet right now, given their strategy, which you admire, has to sell a bunch of things to the same consumer over a long period of time. And I guess, they figured this out at Hublot. There's only so many Big Bangs you can sell one. There's only so many Royal Oaks you can sell somebody before they get bored. So they have to offer some other things to sell. So part of this is in that play, expanding the offering. I think that the Code 1159 is as a case is aging nicely. I don't think they've ever quite figured out what to do with the dial, but they're also aiming towards a generation that grew up with Daniel Wellington. Okay, so for those people, this is amazing.
You absolutely.
For us, we're like,
I never looked at it that way, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely. Look, first of all, this loud purple is something, I got to tell you.
Purple's going to be the new male color.
I kind of like it. To be fair.
And a slightly different strap for a man.
I think, those straps are reminiscent of the older ladies' millineries that I've had a ton of. They had the same sort of strap. They also did satin straps and things of that nature. But for me, again, the shadow of the Royal Oak is going to be hard to beat. As I said, it's impossible. And 10 out of 10 guys that walk into the AP boutique, they're going to want a Royal Oak. But to give people an option, much like they did in the Royal Oak line when they did the 38 millimeters, I think this is right there with it. And there's still a fair share of people out there that would prefer a dressy looking watch over a sporty watch. They'll find comfort in the dressy watch. Guys that wear a suit and a tie on a daily basis, they can't wear an offshore or even a Royal Oak for that matter. So I guess time will show, and the time will show is where they're going to go next within this line. Because personally, I think the last release from the Code 1159 to include the Grand Comp, to include the matte black or the shiny black dial tourbillon, what was it called, the blackout or something like that. It was just a black. It was onyx. There we go. So it was the onyx tourbillon, right? And what else did they still, and obviously the Wandering Wheels. I think those releases are amazing. That's a watch I would wear. But again, the biggest issue that AP is facing and will continue to face, and that you put any watch against the Royal Oak will be chosen first. But who knows? Maybe this is a bit of a hedge, because if the Royal Oak hype dies down a little bit, maybe this becomes the better option for someone. And last but not least, if you look at the model of, we tell our consumers what? Yeah, Royal Oak, I was promised a Royal Oak Chrono Blue Dial. You know, I had to buy a Code 1159. I had to buy an offshore that's not so popular. Then I may have to buy this, and then I'll get my ceramic perpetual, right? And I tell them, well, add up the math, right? Let's say if you're going to spend X to get what you want, the value of that is going to be obviously double or triple at the time, whatever it was. Now, all of a sudden, maybe you're just better off not waiting 3 years and buying it on a secondary, paying that premium, and not buying a bunch of watches that you don't really want, right? Well, now that's become even more scarier for AP, because some of those popular APs are no longer 4X or 3X. Now they're trading at 1.5 to 2X, and now the math starts to make more sense, because also on the flip side, you buy a Code, men's Code, or you buy a men's offshore. It used to be offshores were over list. Now most offshores are trading at list. So coming out of the boutique with a Code 1159 and a plain black offshore, you're now losing X. And now you're paying...
list is very high for AP.
Exactly, and now you're paying a lot less of an X value for that popular watch that still trades over list. So you're going to see a bit of a, there's going to be a bit of a panic with an Audemars Piguet, and at the same token, it just increased production, which I thought was not a good move. But I think this is our last topic, Ariel. I appreciate you coming on. And guys, if you want more specifically about this topic, this is actually on a blog to watch. We'll link it all below. I appreciate you coming along. Thank you guys for joining us on Watch News Weekly. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.